Thanks for moving over. Since we're talking about transport, I think the organizers decided it was a good exercise in transportation, going from one room to the next to see how quickly we could do it. And we did it very quickly, so congratulations to you on that. Okay, I asked earlier at the beginning of the other session, how many of you drove a car or used a car to get here this morning? We want to do the same thing now. Just raise your hand. How many of you got here with a car this morning? Almost everyone, right? How many of you got here with a smart car? How many of you don't know what a smart car is? Ah, there you go. Well, that's why we're going to do this panel discussion today, to kind of find out exactly what that is and what that means. And we've got a great panel assembled for you this morning. And to get us started, I'm going to ask all the panel members, if they would, to come up on stage and to take your seats, and then we're going to start with our discussion. So gentlemen, please come up. Round of applause. Okay, gentlemen, welcome to the Connected Vehicle, the Smart Car session this morning. We've got 5 of you assembled here this morning. So for the audience to get to know everyone, I'm just going to ask you to start there at the end and then work your way towards me. Just introduce yourselves and maybe give everyone an idea of why we have you sitting with us today.
Hello. I hope you can hear me. Good. So my name is Sirish, Batchu. So I had the Infotronics and the Advanced Electronics portfolio Mahindra and Mahindra. So I take care of all the solutions across the Mahindra mobility group, the automotive and the farm sectors. And connected vehicles is one of the big programs for us, and that's where I'm here.
Okay, thank you very much.
Morning, everyone. Morning, everyone. Manu Saale from Mercedes-Benz Research and Development here in Bangalore. I'm the Managing Director, CEO of a 2,000-strong engineering team, R&D and IT. I'm here because we also have a huge telematic presence out here in Bangalore. By Mercedes development, and glad to talk about the connected car. Thank you.
So, good morning everyone, I'm Tim Leverton. I'm responsible at Tata Motors for engineering, product engineering and advanced engineering, also purchasing. And I'm here really because, particularly in our passenger car strategy, connected car is one of our 3 key pillars in terms of the relaunch of our brand. We launched at the beginning of the year from Delhi Expo, and I'm here to talk about and really add to the conversation in terms of our role in expanding connected cars in India.
Thanks, Tim. Good morning. My name is Vijay. I'm President and Managing Director for Robert-Bosch Engineering and Business Solutions. It's a fairly old organization here. We are like many times when people say how many, which was the first organization that came into Bangalore, and most of the time people answer by Texas Instruments, which came in 1985. We were here since 1950. So the name is, Bosch name is like a household name, and therefore it was earlier called Myco to start with, and then now Bosch. And so it has to be told all the time that we are also a MNC, and we have been here since 1950s, right, in Bangalore. 15,000 employees in my office, because we are since then ramping up the employees to a lot of R&D. And would like to share with you R&D and IT stories as we go along. Thank you.
Yeah, good morning. My name is Norbert. I'm coming from Volkswagen, VW. You know, we are located over there in Pune. The basic is in Germany, in Rostock. I'm working for my company since, 25 years now, and I'm here in India, in Pune, since about 2 years. And yeah, connected cars is one of the challenges for us for the next years. We are always trying to make our cars in a way that the Indian requirements are, that we can take care of these Indian requirements, and this is one of the points why I'm here in India, and why I'm participating in this panel.
All right, gentlemen, thank you very much. It's good to have you with us this morning. I think we're going to start out maybe trying to answer the question, what do we mean when we're talking about a connected car? I asked that question earlier today, and some hands went up, but you could also see that a lot of people still aren't certain what we mean when we say connected car. So, and you're nodding your head too, so what do we mean?
Yeah, it's
So, okay, one more clarification, right? So I have to be really careful on this panel discussion. All are my customers. I'm the only tier 1 on this panel. So whatever I say is valid for, whatever good things I say is valid for all of them, right? Starting from Volkswagen to Mahindra and Mahindra. So the connected vehicle has various connections. I mean, the vehicle can connect with your phone. That's the simplest thing to begin with. It can connect to the infrastructure. It can talk to the signals. It can talk to the road signs and so on. It's the next set of possible connectivity. It can talk through cloud to find out, since you've given the address where the vehicle has to go. It can make your route optimum and therefore it's connected. It can connect multiple cars connected to each other, would tell you where the traffic jams are. So there's a whole lot of possibilities. So instead of wondering whether the connected car is, whether car is a part of, internet is a part of the car or car is a part of the internet. And when you put the other way around, the car is a node on the internet. It's just like another machine, like our computers here, like our mobile phones here. It's another connection node in the internet. Then a whole lot of perspective can begin with this switch to car being a part of the node itself.
So how connected are cars today? Who wants to take a stab at that? Yeah, go ahead.
To begin on the lighter side, I think if you go around in the traffic, looks like every vehicle is connected to each other.
Right. It looks like no one's connected if you look at the traffic.
But on a serious note, yeah, there's a lot of development happening globally and also in India, trying to catch up pace with the global development. The key enabler here is IT, as we are in the IT forum here. But I'll dissect it in two parts. One is the information part, other is the technology part. And technology is fast evolving. But the whole emphasis is about how we are able to get the information to the vehicle or from the vehicle and to the customer, which is the owner, or perhaps the driver of the vehicle, which is happening. And using this, what all we can do. So this is the kind of possibilities. And now that is where globally we have seen in the previous presentation the Mercedes-Benz platform, which offers this kind of a thing. In India also, I would say we are quite ahead in this game. Mahindra E2, which is a fully electric car, also relies hugely on the connectivity to basically make sure that the vehicle breakdown and the vehicle maintenance, etc., and all those services are delivered to the car. So I would not say technology is far behind, but it's a question of how much it is going to proliferate in the industry and how much people are going to really get the feel of it and get the benefit out of it rather than seeing it as an esoteric ownership in my vehicle. So that is where I would look at it.
Saale, you want to say something?
I think connectivity, we've just seen the tip of the iceberg just now. Despite all the discussions on connectivity and what you see today in cars, even speaking of Mercedes-Benz and all the features that we talk about, the whole idea of connectivity, bringing lifestyle from outside to inside, there's so much more to do. So if I go back to that question, how much are cars connected today, there's a lot more to do. I think it's about the principle of bringing lifestyle from outside to inside, redefining mobility in a way. It's a fascinating journey.
Yeah, I think really, as the colleagues have mentioned, I think one of the things that's, if I simplify the change in approach to connectivity in the industry over the last period of time, 5 years ago we were worrying about how to integrate a phone into the car. Today we're worrying about how the car, the truck, fits into the digital ecosystem of the consumer. And it's a very different set of issues that come up. I think we're at the start of that process, and I think it will move very quickly, but it will continually hit a series of constraints. First of all, how we are able to deliver innovation in delivering a platform in the product to be able to give seamless integration of a mobile device, but it will quickly then run into capacity and connectivity in the network. And then finally, if we're going to access cloud services and some of the other things that Vijay mentioned, then really infrastructure will be an important part in the longer term.
I think connecting the cars is the big chance for us as the car developer. Sadly, I have to say that the younger people, the younger generation, is not as deep interested in cars as, for example, as I was when I was a young boy. I was a petrol head. Cars were everything for me. And I have a son, he's now 19, and the war. Cars are interesting, but he's much more interested in his smartphone. He's spending all his money in the newest smartphone, and I think when we bring the smartphone into the car and connect all this together, and I would say that the smartphone is a center of the life of the generation. So I see my own children. I think this is a chance for us as car builders, car developers, to bring the younger generation back into the car with a big interest and big
What does it really mean, though? I mean, same way I see that too in Germany, I see that in the US. Young people, they just don't get excited about cars the way you did. I mean, the way my father would, for example. And if you put the smart car or the phone in the car, my impression is that they don't get excited until you tell them that the phone is actually going to drive the car for them, right? So which one of you gentlemen would like to take a stab at telling us when are we going to see that the smart car will actually be able to drive itself? Because I think that's when kids are going to say, hey Dad, I've got a cool car.
Volkswagen, I can say, has built several cars which are driving completely alone. From a technical side, it's not a problem. It's all technical problems are already solved. So the cars really can drive alone, especially on the highway. It's really, from a technical side, not a problem. It's more a problem of the judge of the laws. If the driver is taking the hands away from the steering wheel, who is now responsible for the car if something is happening? If everything goes wrong, if everything goes right, it's not a problem. But as soon as something goes wrong, this is the problem we are discussing. What will happen if there is happened an accident, or how can we prevent an accident that no accidents happen? This from a technical side, it's definitely not a problem anymore. As you, for example, in the last week seen with the Google car. Yes, it's driving completely alone. Technically, it's not a problem, but there are around this many things that have to be clarified.
What about the Google car? Is it going to take a company like Google to provide us with a smart car? I mean, is it something that the automakers are going to give us, or is a computer company going to give us the smart car? I mean, I don't want to put you guys out of work, but you know, who's going to give us what we're expecting?
Well, there's still cars.
There's still cars, yeah.
I think what I'd like to sort of a more practical spin on it, because certainly as a European living and working in India, and looking at the traffic conditions, I find it difficult to imagine in the short term a driverless car. But I think we should be very conscious that as we go through this journey of connectivity, in terms of the ability of the car to relate to its environment and to other vehicles, the sensors we're putting onto the car, the way that we can, whether it's cameras, whether it's radar, whether it's other things, that actually what we will see, and I'm sure will come in the next few years into this market also, is driver aids. And what will trickle down from the Google car is
driver's aids.
Driver's aids. So whether it's collision avoidance, or whether it's blind spot detection, or whether it's other things, and these will make a very practical, in the short term, they will make a very practical contribution to safety. And they are a step on the way towards the sort of technologies and the industrialization and cost base of those technologies that will start to make driverless cars a reality also in markets like this.
I think the boundaries of what we call autonomous is actually expanding day by day. What you see in the new S-Class, for example, what Tim just mentioned, collision avoidance, Distronic Plus. So I think the automakers are coming out with features that actually already enable, if I may say, a little bit of distraction from driving, still making sure safety is kept. This is in a way giving freedom and autonomous driving. The boundaries are being pushed. I also agree with Norbert, there are technologies available today, maybe the law not, maybe the infrastructure not, but I think it's not far before automakers come up with fully autonomous cars. This is the future for sure.
I have a personal perspective, so this is the human psychology. What do I, as a driver, what am I ready to give away as my control? And I seriously had a automatic parking possibility when I last time rented in Germany on my business travel, but I didn't use it. I said I'm going to park it myself. I was not too sure what it's going to do because it was doing PPP, like it's going to park by itself.
You mean to do the parallel parking?
Parallel parking by itself.
You wanted to do that by yourself?
Yeah, I did it by myself. I tell you why I'm saying this. So
yeah?
We gave up on the opening of throttle valves by pushing our pedals long back without realizing it.
Right.
So today it could have been a radio button, which is not so, it's just still a pedal which we push because we are used to doing it that way for years. We have given up, let's say, on a cruise control, cruise control which is adaptive. We have given away the braking while on the cruise. So when something comes in the front, it brakes. When it goes away, it goes back to the cruise that you wanted. So we'll give up the controls when they are easy from our perspective, as a psychological perspective, to easy to give it away. And what is left now is probably steering wheel, and in a while that will go away when that comes easy to give away. And that will not happen from a psychology point of view. So while the future of cars is automatic, it's connected and it's electric, it takes time to get there. And one of the aspects is the human psychology into when it will get there.
Yeah. I can tell you, sorry for that, I'm quite old man and I'm skeptical about new technologies, even if I'm developing them by myself. And I can tell you, you have to,
At least he's honest.
You have to go over this border, let me say. I'm developing a part of this system you just explained, automatically parking. And even if I developed it by myself, I didn't trust the system. This problem, you once have to go over this border, let me say, suddenly you think, it's really working, it's good working. And once you've understood, yes, this is working and I can trust the system, you will use it. My wife is even in the same, first of all, oh, why are you taking your hands away from the steering? Yeah. Because I developed this system. So you really have to try, then you see it's working, it's beautiful, it's wonderful.
You were never a used car salesman, were you? I can tell that right
I'd
now.
like to add a perspective.
Yeah.
I just take you a step back in terms of how the mobiles industry exploded, especially taking Indian market perspective. When they first came in, everybody was like, okay, this is so prohibitively costly, and then what is the need? I have a landline. But if you look at the way it has exploded, today it's become a need practically for everyone. And through the entire economic strata, not only from the top niche executives, but also down the level, to the level of a sweeper on the street, to the guy who's selling fruits on the street. They use it for business, it's become a need. And in terms of the autonomous vehicles and mobility, I see the same thing coming up. Mobility is an essential need for everyone. But not everyone would be able to be in a position to own a car or to drive a car even if they own one. So that is where I see that autonomous vehicles or the trend in that direction will really accelerate because there's a pull from the market. And that's what I see that if you look at, of course, the people sitting here, today you're in a position you can drive the cars and perhaps you would have a driver for you. But think of so many other people outside there who are differently able, perhaps old age people, there are new comers on the board. Everybody wants a mobility solution. So if you look at a segment in different contexts, so perhaps you can put it in the context of public transportation, where bringing in autonomous concepts are much more useful there. Or you look at different off-road usage of the vehicles, where so many, if I look at India, 2/3 of the population is in the rural areas, and where infrastructure is not so good, they don't have sufficient skills to drive a vehicle. Perhaps this is the area where it will really pick up. And that is what is an opportunity, what we see in terms of how this can really accelerate in terms of the picking up the market.
And is this the discussion that developed rich countries are going to complete first, and then it's going to happen in developing countries? I mean, we were talking about the traffic situation, but are we going to see Europe, the United States, maybe Japan, have this experiment completed first before it comes to India?
Just to extend that same statement, in fact, from Mahindra, we have recently launched a RISE prize, which is for a driverless car development. And this is the prize money which is announced is around $1 million. And the response, what you see from the industry is enormous. It's so exciting to see the kind of participants coming, all from India, and different kinds of innovations which is coming on the board. There is a Google as a benchmark, yes, but in terms of the ideas which are coming from all these teams, they are on a different plane. And if you talk of the cost structures, perhaps it is a fraction of the cost of Google, what the ideas which are coming on board. And we are very positive with that. Exactly the question what you said, whether developing countries will drive this or the developed countries will drive this. This is going to change the paradigm in terms of if we are able to mobilize in terms of the talent available here. Within, I'm sure, as a part of the result of this contest, we are going to see within 1.5–2 years, real autonomous cars on the road, which can be within a controlled environment and with all the regulations applied to that.
And I think this is, I echo this point. I think actually there is a great opportunity to leapfrog. And this traditional sort of almost conventional view that there'll be a trickle down doesn't necessarily hold at all. And I think if you look to the telecoms industry and the progress of telecommunications in India, they missed out the landline development and coverage completely and went straight to mobile. Today we have, what, 750, 800 million active mobile phone accounts. And of those, so far, I think rising at a rate of 5 million a month or so, over 100 million smartphones. And the smartphone penetration was enabled by very rapid innovation to very low-cost smartphones. And the paradigm that somehow people would accept conventional phones and they'd be happy with those until they could afford something that didn't hold. And if people are moving directly to smartphones, that's also an opportunity for us in India in terms of the capabilities that we have and the ability to see this in a different way.
But is it really fair to compare what's happened with telephones to what's happening with automobiles? Because at the end of the day, no matter how smart the car is, no matter how good your connectivity is, you still have to have the state or the highway authority also in the game, right? They have to make sure that the highways are there, and they're also going to have to make sure that the infrastructure is there to make sure that the connected car and the highway stay together, right? I mean, there is that third element that you don't have when you're talking about using a phone.
Therefore, I think it's not a race, actually, between the West and the East. Yeah. The use cases are completely different. I mean, you're trying to give sensory organs to the car to be able to drive. And it's actually not on a lighter note, but the way we use our sensory organs to drive around, I mean, the way you look around and make a decision who goes first, to duplicate this with electronics and with sensors and radars now. When I drive around and say, if autonomous driving were to come in India, and yesterday we took, I think, Helmut and me more than an hour to reach from here to the hotel, the kind of use cases that just happens on the road, and we said, you can't change this, you just cannot change this. It's not about driving the safe way. Probably you have not the infrastructure that supports you before autonomous driving comes in a special way, right? So it's a completely new thinking, but I think the use cases are different.
Okay. I think it's the demand of the markets. Once the technology is available, 2 days later it's available worldwide. And we have two kinds of technology. One is inside the car, and the other is, as you mentioned, the infrastructure on the streets. And as soon as the technology in the cars is available in one country over the world, 2 days later it's available all over the world. And yeah, I think it's demand of the market when it is necessary. And yeah, when you're driving a car in India, you can see that something should happen with the traffic. I think the infrastructure which is necessary also will be built as soon as possible. So once we are driving or we had self-driving cars in Europe, I think half a year later we will have it in India. Yes, because the technology is available.
Let's do a little flashback here with the audience. How many people are willing to give up the steering wheel, to give up the driving and to let the car drive itself? Show your hands. So not everybody. Yeah, I mean, how many of you trust the car? Okay, now how many of you trust the infrastructure, like the highway authority and all of that? See, at the end of the day, it's the politicians who still have to deliver, right, gentlemen?
I think though, if you know, the discussion we're having is about almost the extreme end of the continuum of this connectivity story, and I think the point I'm really trying to make is what we provide on the path there is where we can actually products that we have in India and with the growth of driver assistance, I think we can actually move, quite fast in those areas.
Could you venture maybe a timeline? Tim? I mean, what are we talking about here?
Well, I think in terms of, let's talk about two things. I think first of all, in terms of the level of the platform, we talked about the technology in the car, the platform that we're going to be able to offer starting now and in the next 2 or 3 years in terms of the connection of the device and the integration of the device. In our Tata Zest product, we're already offering voice control, already offering text-to-speech functionality, and this in a vehicle which is selling for 5 lakhs of rupees, so around $8,000. So this is already there. So in the next 2 or 3 years, this will go on much more quickly, and I think the configuration of the hardware in the vehicle will change to move cost from processing in the car to display, to be able to reflect the device and just use the device itself to do the processing. So I think this will move very rapidly. And then I think as we move ahead from there, certainly within 5 years we'll see useful driver assistance. Certainly low-speed features we talked about, Manu talked about park features, for example. Then these will be available. We've already got electric power steering in our cars. We've already control a number of the things. So therefore, these type of features will emerge in the next 3 to 5 years at these price points.
Yeah, that it's affordable.
You've been putting a lot of emphasis on the availability of infrastructure and so on, but let me tell you one perspective from India. India, I'm sure, the moment you step out of your house today, nobody is thinking of what is going to be there. They're prepared for the worst. And when you translate that to a solution, the solutions are also designed to beat or meet the worst kind of situation. So I would say when you really look into the ideas which come across in building such technologies, which originate from the Indian brains, they typically go through this cycle of thought process saying that, yeah, this is the condition, this is where I have to meet, and this is how I have to design. So no reliance on external stuff. And this will be one of the key driving factors from the innovation point of view. Because traditionally what has been happening is there are European or American companies coming in India trying to adapt their technologies to the Indian need, but we are seeing a complete shift here. Now the shift is happening towards make in India and make for India. It is not like adapt for India or sell for India. So that is the whole shift which is going to take. And you'll find a completely radically different solutions where you think a Google autonomous car is on a certain technology, but perhaps an Indian autonomous car would be entirely different.
Well, what would an Indian connected car be or do that would be different from a Brazilian connected car? I mean, what is it? Is it just the fact that the traffic here is crazy? I mean, is that what you're talking about? Is that what is Indian about the situation?
Yeah, the complete situation. I mean, Brazil and India could be at parallels, yes. But then if I compare India and Europe or India and US, situation is completely different. You have very good infrastructure there. Infrastructure is developing in India, okay. And the kind of dependence you can have on the infrastructure here still it has to reach to a much higher level. So when you want to have a solution, your thought process starts from what is available, what I can work within the constraints, and that's a constant-driven innovation which happens.
But from a technical side, the problem is always the same. If it is in Brazil, if it is in Europe, or if it is in India, the technical problem and the solution which is necessary is always the same. There are many cars driving in parallel and they have to be connected and they have to discuss with each other. If there are more cars and only with 10 cm of distance or so, it's a special point for the technique, but the general problem is always the same all over the world.
For the panel discussion, we also like to ask for questions from the audience because this is more intimate. Are there any questions people would like to ask? Don't be shy either because we only get one chance. Yeah, we've got a gentleman right here in the front. Do we have a microphone for the gentleman? If not, we can give him one of ours.
Question has to be heard. Hi, I am Varun from Smart Play, and we are in the auto infotainment platform business. So I have a question. When you make a connected car, there is a security concern always. If the car is connected, if my car is connected, it can be hacked by somebody else, and something big may be done outside by outside person. So how you see security as a threat for the connected car, and how you are planning to overcome this threat?
Good question. Any others? I just want maybe to collect one or two. How about the gentleman right behind you? Let's just take this question. So we've got, the first question is security as a trade-off. Okay. And what, right here?
This is Vikas Agarwal from Infosys. Simple question. What about protocols for cars talking to each other?
The cars talking to each other?
Yeah. So when you ask the question about, how many of you are comfortable leaving your steering wheel? So my internal response was, well, if the cars are talking to each other and taking care that they don't beat each other up, then I'm okay.
Right.
But if it's a if it's a hybrid environment, then I'm not so okay leaving control.
Yeah. Okay. As long as the cars don't have road rage. Right.
But then there are protocols in place that will.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. And one more. Was there one more? All right. Oh, right in the back. We've got two more. We'll take those two, and then we'll start answering. Okay, we got a gentleman right here. He's standing up. You see the gentleman standing up? And now he's sitting down. What happened to him? Maybe he got a smart car and left. There you go. There you go.
Hello, my name is Roland Haas from QSO Technologies. I was following the discussion on autonomous vehicles very interestedly, and I think one of the fundamental challenges we will be facing is a handover between driver assistance and full autonomy. So are there some ideas how that could be made safer? Before we have the full autonomy, it drives completely, and the handover from I still have to do something as a human. So this interface, this transition process, maybe some comments could be given on that.
Okay.
Thanks.
Very good. Okay, who wants to take a stab at the security as a trade-off? You want to do that?
Yeah. The point with security is definitely the most important point, I think, because it's always the same. Everybody who's developing some techniques knows if you have a problem, especially with electronic, you need some sensors, you need some actuators, and you need some software, and boom, you have a solution. It's very simple, right? But then the real work begin, because the sensors, these actuators, and these ECUs, the software, suddenly is producing things that you are not aware of. And this software doesn't say, hey, here I have a mail function. No, you have to find out this mail function. And this is one of the big problems when we are developing softwares and technical solutions, that there are functionalities that we are not that we do not want. This is the one point. And the other point is regarding safety. We're having some good friends, and they call themselves hackers. And funnily, they are not our enemies, they are our friends, because they are showing us where we have problems. And I know my company has some hackers as employees.
Good hackers.
Yeah.
Good hackers.
Good hackers here. And they should show us where are the problems in our systems, because, for example, when we are developing an ABS system, 99% of safety is not enough. We need 100% of safety. And the same is, regarding your question, the same is with all these connected cars, self-driving cars, and so on. 99% of safety is not enough. We need 100, nearly more than 100% of safety. So this is the biggest point, and I think this is the highest challenge for us as car developers for the future. As I said, the technology is available, but we have to take care of all the risks.
Anyone else? Yeah?
Just a small different orientation to the same problem. I agree with all the points. If you divide the car into different domains of what is happening in the car, it's infotainment, it's safety and security like ABS or electronic stability that you have in the car. It's the powertrain, the engine which is getting driven, and it's the body computers around the car, window lifters or wipers and so on. If you divide that into 4 different quadrants, then what will get opened up is most likely the ones which are not critical from a safety point of view. So it will get opened up on the communication, on the navigation systems. What will get opened up maybe is on the, at the most on the body computers, but never on the powertrain or on the safety, ABS and ESPs and so on. Given this aspect, it's already safe. So it's maybe best case somebody will talk to you on your radio. Okay, that is, I don't know how awkward that is. On top of that, there are huge security algorithms that are built into the software. So what you see in some of the movies, probably I don't know whether it was World Is Not Enough or there's a James Bond car which is connected or talked from outside. It's not a phenomenon that will happen in real life without having sufficient securities built in. In fact, automotive, in my view, because I've worked in the other industry before coming into automotive, the number of quality checks that we have, or the kind of tests we do for delivering anything to the end user, you can imagine about 70% of the effort is going into testing of the whole development, right? 65-70% of the effort is to check that everything is alright, including security. Compared to a standard business application, it's about 30-40%. So it's a huge difference in the orientation of the automotive development, automotive software. While it's software, you are looking at ppm levels of defects and not the typical defects that you see in business applications. So the era is different, and therefore it's not from what you perceive from an outside world saying software means defect means this, that equation is not necessarily valid. It's just a different perspective.
Tim, what about the notion of cars talking to each other?
Well, I think this is obviously one of the important elements. I think the Google car doesn't rely on that. I had the chance to ride in a Google car last year, and I think it doesn't rely on car-to-car communication for its safety. But so that if we're going to go to that extent, though, then it underlines one thing, which I think that as a subject in terms of say India as an environment, the availability of standards, the availability of an agreement of a basis where everybody can actually work. Probably we as an automotive community need to strongly participate and help define those, because the better that is, the safer that is in everybody's interests. And then I think how we bring our solutions to bear inside that framework is going to be then up to us, and that's how we'll probably compete. But having that established very clearly and over the long term, I think, is an important enabler for the speed at which this can roll out.
Wait, follow up on that. So is there a standard body already, or an industry body that's looking at this protocol? Is there a standard? Yes, a body that creates standards for this?
Yeah, there are some already, and there are certainly in our industry groups we're already debating this.
But it's still the standards have to be set industry-wide, right?
Not that I'm aware yet.
Right.
Thank you.
But I'm sure you definitely agree that it's always V2X that's being discussed, vehicle to vehicle as well as vehicle to infrastructure.
Yeah.
So there's always that element which is a strong pillar of the autonomous vehicle to vehicle communication connected car that we talk about. And I think we have use cases where we already, it's like the tethering concept that you have, that you really rely on the intelligence, not just on the infrastructure. One car ahead of you, beside you, actually telling you something that it saw before you. It's certainly part of the plan, in all the plans that I see. So probably the standards are not there yet, but I think this is definitely one half of it.
Just to add to that, the common known technology today is DSRC. But in India, you have prohibitions on the frequency range and the usage part of it. Now, the question is, even if the standard existing globally, how can you put it to use here in the country? That is one part of it. Second thing is, if I look at the technology, it is continuously evolving. And when do I call it 100% in place? That you can never use this thing, because your use cases always keep adding up and so on. So branch out, see the practical utilization of that, and then bring more evolution.
And the third question we had was about this notion of a transition from the cars as we know them now to the completely connected and smart car. Are we going to see that? we want to talk about that. I'm also interested, are we going to also see the car market stay the way that we've known it? Are we going to have like Tata Motors, Volkswagen providing a car for every man, and then have Mercedes providing luxury cars? Are there going to be degrees of smartness based on what you can afford? I mean, are we going to see, for example, a Volkswagen Beetle on the road that's totally connected and drives itself, and maybe a Mercedes on the road that still has someone on the steering wheel? Are we going to see that type of mixing on the highways? Who wants to? Yeah?
Well, if I can start, well, I think Mercedes today is defining luxury. But on the other hand, if you see what comes in even basic, when you go back to the hall where the C-Class is standing, today the C-Class has electronics, telematics, connectivity that was not in the C-Class before. So I think there's a general upgrade of electronics and features and connectivity that's coming in every car. The rest is depending, of course, on local connections, content providers, what happens, and so on. Segments are being defined, redefined. Compact cars is so much in focus that Mercedes was not some years ago. So I think, but the compact car doesn't mean we strip features off. It's still a luxury compact car. Right? So luxury element remains.
Doesn't mean it's going to be a low-priced car.
What?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Luxury compact is still how we want to call it.
Right.
But the features in it certainly are advanced. Right? What you see in the C is like an S-Class.
Exactly.
I think I'll add to that comment. I think one of the challenges that we face, I mean, let's step back from the driverless car and talk about connectivity and the functionality that you receive it from your device and your experience in the car. I think functionality will be expected in even the entry-level car.
Okay.
And the question will be not whether you have access to that functionality, it will be the way it's rendered, which actually is the difference between an entry-level car and a luxury car. You may have a better display, you may have a different nuance in terms of the gesture control or some other differentiations in terms of how it is in the car. The functionality that will be expected will be the same. So that's because the smartphones already give that. So the customer's expectation buying a 5 lakh car or a 3 or 4 lakh car, is he expected to get all of that delivered back to him in the car? And that's our challenge at Tata Motors, is to create innovation and to disrupt, to be able to offer that price points that we
I don't think that on the end of December we were driving our cars by ourselves, and then on 1st of January every car will drive by itself. It's definitely not possible. I think there will be several stages. First stage may be that the car is not driving by itself, but the driver gets more and more information about risk, what is happening around him. And the other idea is, for example, that we start with highways to organize all these.
The self-driving car on a highway is much more easier than in a traffic jam. Right? And it's definitely, when we're really talking about connected cars, it means that the cars are connected with each other, which is a question of standardization. Mercedes-Benz and VW should sit together, and we're doing it, and discuss about standardization, just as we did, for example, for the connector for electrical cars. It needed 3 or 4 years to find
one connector which can be used all over the world, and the same process has to be done for the connection of cars. And I'm sure there will be several steps until really you see a beautiful Beetle driving itself on a car on the street.
Slightly nuance to the discussion. I think we are mixing between a smart car and an intelligent car. Right? Intelligent car is where we are looking at autonomous, self-driving and all that stuff. Smart, whereas smart is about being connected to that, how you are using the information from that and so on. So I think the smart is not a long way, it's already there, and it's a question of how wide it is going to proliferate, number one. Second thing is, I'll also look at the bigger context of vehicles, smart vehicles rather than smart car, because car limits my focus only on the passenger cars and then the passenger application. But if you look at the vehicle park out there, there's so many other kinds of vehicles out there in the market. Now, how can you leverage the smartness from these vehicles so that it is helping not only the customer but also industry as a whole, as well as the economy as a whole? And that is where, if I look at different set of vehicles, light commercial vehicles, heavy commercial vehicles, it's already proven beyond doubt that information, basic minimum, the location information of tracking itself is going to give you improvements over leaps and bounds. Now if you're able to extend this in terms of knowing the vehicle conditions and matching it with the location around it, what is happening, there's so much more which can be done. And for a person for whom vehicle is a means of transport, it's a different proposition. It's more of a bringing lifestyle, luxury and so on. But for a person who is there out in the streets delivering goods from place to place, it's a question of livelihood. And how can this technology be of use for this person that his livelihood is maximized? So we are looking at multiple applications of this, how this can be brought about. And I think smartness will run by the demand, because once these people get the flavor of it, your demand will simply explode out.
Yeah. I've been told to ask, to wrap things up, a question. What does this mean for chauffeur drivers and taxi drivers? Are we looking at their professions going the way of dinosaurs because of gentlemen just like you? Is that what's going to happen? I mean, you can easily say yes, no one's going to. But I mean, who wants to take a stab at that?
I will now fundamentally shift the problem. So, if you think that there's a war between transportation and communication, since we talked so much of phones and cars,
yes.
And why do we transport ourselves? Why am I here right now is to communicate with all of you. If I could be beamed here, I don't need the car. So the war is still not over.
That's a different panel discussion.
No, I know. The war is not over until I really find out why do I transport myself. When I transport myself for sightseeing or for a soccer match, there's a different story. I transport myself to office in the first place, maybe it's wrong. And that's, so until it evolves to that level, maybe there are chauffeurs and there are, they are doing something, but maybe they're giving you coffee if nothing else.
Okay. I'm sure the job of a taxi driver has a good future.
Really?
Very simple. The job is not only to drive the car. For example, he has to carry your baggage. He has to entertain you while driving. And if you are sitting in the car, you do not realize he really has the hands on the steering wheel or not. This is not the most important. I think to offer this kind of service still is necessary. And so I'm not afraid that taxi drivers will not get a job.
My answer was actually a little bit the same, is that actually thinks it will change. A driverless car by definition doesn't need a driver, but that doesn't mean that you don't need somebody or some other service will emerge. I think one of the things that we've seen, for example with Uber, with Ola in India, is you're seeing service businesses emerge which are connecting people to conventional taxis with driver at the moment. But won't that still be needed? Won't there still be some different business opportunities that will come up? So maybe not so many drivers will be employed, but there's other roles and other business chances for employment will come up instead in a different aspect of the system.
Just can echo what Tim says, like the retail versus online battle that's going on right now. I think there will be a morphing of that industry to something else. I'm confident there's nothing to worry.
Just to add on to what also colleague said, is the shop versus the taxi driver. There are two different profiles. The chauffeur is for the owner of the car, and the car would serve the needs of the owner, not the chauffeur. But a taxi driver is perhaps the owner himself of the car, and his needs are different in terms of how he maximizes his utilization. That's where I think like models like Uber and other things are pitching in to bring in more demand to this particular taxi so that he can maximize his earning potential. But it's a different proposition altogether for an owner of the car, because it's more of luxury and those kind of. I think this is kind of divided.
Just as the last point, I think one of the points that Sirish made was about telematics. And I mean, we have our fleet man system at Tata Motors for our commercial vehicles. One of the key dimensions of productivity that gives is increasing utilization, so that the downtime of the asset that is there is being reduced. That will also be a factor in terms of how this will play.
Gentlemen, thank you very much. We've got gifts for all of you too, for daring to look into your crystal ball. If we could maybe bring those up on the stage. Do we have those here in your room? Bring those up. All right, you all get one of those. Let's give the gentleman a round of applause. And this is going to wrap up this session. We're going to take just a 2-minute break, and then we're going to reconvened in here for the next panel discussion, and that's going to be Enterprise Transformation Choices, Cloud and its Openness. So come back, if you need to take a break or whatever, come back in 2 minutes and we're going to start here again, all right? Thank you very much, everybody.